They said you were everything they ever wanted. They opened up, connected with you, maybe even talked about a future together. But as soon as things started to feel emotionally real, safe, steady, intimate, they changed. They pulled away, got cold, started picking fights, and before you knew it, the person who once made you feel chosen began to make you feel like a burden. If this happened to you, you're not imagining it, and you're not alone. I'm Jim Rohn, and in this video, we're going to unpack something most people struggle to make sense of: why avoidant people sabotage good relationships, especially the ones they secretly want most. Here's the truth. Avoidants don't run because they don't care. They often run because they do. Emotional closeness, especially when it's healthy, activates the very fears they've spent a lifetime trying to avoid. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, love isn't just connection, it's exposure, it's vulnerability. And vulnerability, that can feel like danger. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the hidden psychological dynamics that drive avoidant behavior. You'll learn why consistency can actually feel threatening to someone who grew up with emotional instability, why real intimacy triggers survival reflexes instead of comfort, and how their sabotage is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their unhealed wounds. If you've ever felt blindsided by someone who pulled away just when things got good, this is the clarity you've been waiting for. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified every time we release a new video, and leave a comment to share your story or what resonates most with you. You deserve answers, and more importantly, you deserve peace. Let's break the pattern and get to the hidden truth behind why avoidants push away the very love they need. Let's dive in. Let's start with where this all begins, because avoidant behavior isn't random, and it's not a sign that someone's incapable of love. It's a response to emotional wiring that formed early in life. Most avoidantly attached people grew up in environments where emotional safety was inconsistent or simply not available. Maybe they had caregivers who were physically present but emotionally unavailable, or maybe their emotional needs were met with criticism, withdrawal, or even punishment. Over time, they learned that depending on others or even showing emotion was risky. When a child learns that being vulnerable gets them hurt or ignored, they adapt. They start to rely on themselves. They shut down feelings before anyone else can. They become self-contained, overly independent, and emotionally guarded. These aren't flaws, they're survival skills. And while those defenses may have protected them as children, they end up creating disconnection and confusion in adult relationships. Fast forward to adulthood, and that same person may now be in a relationship with someone who's loving, emotionally available, and truly present. And ironically, that kind of safety can feel more threatening than anything they've experienced before. It challenges the entire belief system they've used to stay emotionally safe. Their partner says, "I'm here for you," but their nervous system hears, "This could end badly. You're about to lose control." So even when love is healthy, even when the relationship is built on trust, kindness, and mutual care, the avoidant may start to sabotage. They withdraw, they become critical, they create distance out of nowhere. It doesn't mean they don't care, it means they're scared. I once worked with a client named Rachel, whose avoidant partner began to shut down right after she told him she loved him. Up until that point, they had been close, even emotionally connected. But the moment the relationship deepened, he started saying things like, "I'm not sure I'm ready," or "Maybe we're moving too fast." He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was overwhelmed. Vulnerability felt like a threat to his autonomy, to his sense of emotional control. This is why avoidants often function well in casual relationships or with emotionally unavailable partners. They don't have to be vulnerable. But when someone shows up with real love, it breaks the script. And until the avoidant has developed the tools to regulate their fear and rebuild trust in closeness, their instinct will be to push love away before it pushes them. So remember, avoidants don't sabotage because they don't value you. They sabotage because they haven't yet learned how to feel safe while staying close. And the more we understand that, the more we can stop personalizing their behavior and start setting healthier boundaries for ourselves. It's paradoxical. But let's discuss why avoidance sometimes sabotage the very relationships most people would consider a dream. On the outside, everything might seem fine. There's closeness, consistency, real intimacy. But for someone with an avoidant attachment style, the moment that emotional security becomes real and steady is the exact moment their inner alarm bells start ringing. You see, for avoidance, true intimacy doesn't register as safety, it registers as risk. It requires them to let go of control, to be seen, to be vulnerable, things that for most of their lives they've learned to avoid in order to protect themselves. So when a relationship begins to feel emotionally rich, supportive, and safe, instead of relaxing into it, they start bracing for something to go wrong. That's when survival mode kicks in. And survival mode doesn't always look like running away immediately. Sometimes it looks like emotional withdrawal. They stop sharing, they become less affectionate, they seem off, but can't explain why. This withdrawal is usually their first line of defense. It creates just enough space to help them feel in control again. If that doesn't work, they may start picking fights, often over small things. You might notice they suddenly have a problem with how you load the dishwasher or the way you asked a question. But it's not about the dishes. It's about creating emotional distance. Conflict gives them an excuse to disconnect, to reassert emotional space without admitting they're overwhelmed by closeness. Other times they'll become cold or critical, seemingly out of nowhere. They might question the relationship, criticize your needs, or even compare you to past partners. Again, this isn't about you being wrong. It's about them creating emotional safety by pushing you away before you get too close. And in more extreme cases, they may even end the relationship abruptly with little explanation, often at the peak of emotional closeness. This can be one of the most painful parts for the partner left behind. You're sitting there thinking, how could they leave when everything seemed so good? But to the avoidant, that goodness was exactly what triggered them. Real love woke up their deepest, unresolved trauma. I once worked with a client named Trevor, whose girlfriend broke up with him just 3 days after they spent a weekend away together where she'd told him she felt more connected than ever. He was blindsided. But when they talked months later, she admitted that the closeness scared her. She didn't have the tools to feel safe in that kind of intimacy, so she ended it, not because she didn't care, but because it felt too real, too risky. Avoidants aren't bad people, they're not trying to hurt anyone. Most of the time, they don't even fully understand why they're pulling away. It's not a calculated move, it's instinctual, a reflex that says, if I get too close, I'll lose myself. If I need you, I'll get hurt. So I need to back away before that happens. And here's the kicker. Many avoidants actually miss the relationship after they leave. Once the emotional intensity fades and their nervous system resets, they may even reach back out. But unless they've done the work to understand their pattern, the cycle just repeats. Close, panic, pull away, regret, repeat. This is why it's so important not to take their sabotage personally. I know that's easier said than done, especially when you're the one left confused or hurt. But understanding that their withdrawal is rooted in fear, not your lack, can help you shift out of self-blame and into clarity. You didn't break the relationship by being too loving, too open, or too emotionally present. You simply touched a place in them that was never taught how to stay open when love gets deep. And while that's heartbreaking, it's also incredibly freeing, because it shows you that their retreat wasn't about you being wrong. It was about love becoming real. And for someone with unhealed emotional wounds, real love isn't just intimacy, it's a mirror. One that shows them all the places where love still feels like danger. And that's not something you caused. That's something they have to learn how to hold if they choose to heal. Here's what's hiding underneath so much avoidant behavior. What I call the hidden belief system. These are the unconscious thoughts driving their actions, even when they don't realize it. Beliefs like, If I let you in, you'll eventually disappoint or abandon me. Or, if I need you, I lose control of myself. And maybe the deepest one of all, if you really saw all of me, my fears, my insecurities, my mess, you'd leave. These beliefs were likely formed early on. Maybe their caregivers were emotionally unpredictable, sometimes present but other times dismissive or critical. Maybe they were made to feel like a burden just for having needs. Or maybe they were praised only for being independent, so they learned that closeness meant risk and that self-sufficiency was the only safe option. Over time, these experiences solidified into internal rules for how to survive emotionally. And even as adults, those rules still run the show, especially in love. That's why avoidants often feel more at ease in distant, low-stakes relationships. Relationships that don't ask much of them emotionally. Ones that don't push up against their old wounds. In those relationships, they can stay in control, keep their guard up, and avoid the vulnerability that real intimacy requires. They can function in those dynamics, but they're not growing. They're not risking, opening, or learning to sit with love's discomfort. I had a client, Jenna, who was dating a man with avoidant tendencies. For the first 6 months, things were great, fun, light, adventurous. But the moment she started sharing deeper parts of herself, talking about her fears, hopes, and needs, he began to retreat. He didn't get mean or dramatic. He just started creating space, responding slower, avoiding emotional conversations. When she finally asked what was going on, he told her, "I think I just do better in relationships that aren't so intense." What he meant was, "I don't know how to stay when someone loves me this openly." His hidden belief, just like many avoidants, is that intimacy is dangerous. Not because the partner is doing anything wrong, but because closeness threatens the fragile sense of safety they've built through emotional distance. So when they start pulling away, it's not because they've stopped loving you, it's because their nervous system is screaming, "This feels like too much." Not too much love, too much risk, too much exposure, too much emotional truth they were never taught to hold. Understanding this helps you stop personalizing their retreat. It doesn't make their behavior okay, but it helps you see it clearly. Their sabotage isn't about your worth, it's about their wounds. And knowing that gives you the power to respond with clarity, not desperation. To hold compassion without self-abandonment, and to choose love that doesn't ask you to live on the edge of someone else's fear. Crucially, and this is what I want you to truly understand, avoidant patterns can be changed. They are not permanent. They're protective, not fixed. But healing doesn't happen through more love alone. It doesn't happen because someone chases harder or proves themselves more. Real transformation for avoidantly attached people begins when they become aware of their patterns, take responsibility for their behavior, and begin the work of rewiring what love means to them. That kind of growth often takes therapy, reflection, and the willingness to get uncomfortable. Because healing isn't about learning how to love perfectly, it's about learning how to feel safe in connection. Safe enough to stay, safe enough to let someone in without losing yourself. And that takes time, especially when someone's nervous system is used to equating closeness with danger. But change becomes possible when avoidants begin to realize that emotional intimacy isn't a trap, it's an invitation. It doesn't have to mean losing control or being engulfed or becoming dependent in a way that strips away their autonomy. Love doesn't mean disappearing into someone else. It means being seen and still being free. What helps avoidants feel safe enough to take that leap? Ironically, it's not a partner who chases them. It's a partner who stays grounded. Someone who says, "I care about you, but I won't abandon myself to keep this going." Clear boundaries create emotional safety, not just for the secure partner, but for the avoidant as well. When you calmly express your needs and stop over-functioning, you remove the chaos that often triggers their fear. You give them the space to step toward connection rather than run from it. I remember one client, Taylor, who had an avoidant partner who used to pull away every time things got close. In the past, she would chase texting more, trying to fix, trying to soothe. But once she began setting boundaries, saying things like, "I need consistency to feel safe," and "I won't stay in something where I'm left guessing," he started to shift. Not overnight, but the absence of pressure gave him the room to reflect. And eventually he began opening up, not out of fear, but from choice. That's the kind of dynamic where change is possible. It's rooted in truth, not desperation. It requires both people to own their emotional work, because you can't heal someone by abandoning your own needs. And they can't become emotionally available by being rescued from their fear. So yes, avoidance can change. They can learn to love in a way that feels mutual, secure, and real. But they have to want to. They have to choose growth over protection. And you have every right to choose peace while they figure that out. Because love should feel like something you can exhale into, not something that keeps you walking on eggshells. Let's wrap this up with the clarity and compassion you deserve. If you've been in a relationship with someone who seemed to pull away just as things got close, who went cold, picked fights, or sabotaged what felt safe and loving, you're not alone. And you're not crazy. Avoidants don't destroy good relationships because they don't care. They do it because closeness feels unsafe to a nervous system that equates love with loss, vulnerability with danger. In this video, we unpack the real reason why avoidants sabotage healthy relationships. We explored how early emotional wounds, like rejection, inconsistency, or being punished for vulnerability, can wire someone to associate intimacy with risk. We talked about the hidden beliefs avoidants carry, like, "If I let you in, you'll eventually hurt me," and "If I depend on you, I'll lose control of myself." And we looked at what survival mode behaviors look like: withdrawing, criticizing, picking fights, and sometimes ending relationships abruptly, not out of malice, but out of fear. But most importantly, we talked about hope. Avoidance can change with self-awareness, emotional accountability, and often therapy. And while you can't fix or force their healing, you can create space for real connection by holding boundaries, honoring your needs, and leading with calm clarity. That's not chasing, that's self-respect. That's what secure love looks like. If this video brought you insight, relief, or even just a sense of being seen, I want to thank you for being here. You're doing the hard work of learning, healing, and unlearning patterns that were never yours to carry. And that matters. If this resonated, please leave a comment below. Share your experience or the part that hit home. Your voice might give someone else the exact encouragement they need. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more grounded, emotionally intelligent guidance on navigating attachment wounds, relationships, and real healing. Because the truth is, you deserve a love that doesn't ask you to walk on eggshells. You deserve a connection that doesn't retreat when it gets close. You deserve safety, intimacy, and someone who can stay. Until then, stay rooted in your own peace and keep choosing the kind of love that heals, not harms.